Hi, my name is Kristen Berry, and you're listening to In Her Words.
Everyone has a story. Welcome to In Her Words, a podcast from women in entertainment where female creatives and allies share their stories in their own words.
This is a dedicated space centered on how to harness creativity for inspiring and impactful projects in the ever-changing landscape of entertainment.
I'm Renee Rossi,
I'm Gretchen McCourt.
and this is In Her Words.
Today we are shining our spotlight on Kristen Berry and her debut novel, We Don't Talk About Carol. You heard that correctly, debut novel. This blend of a great mystery and a deeply emotional family story is Kristen's first book. She is so lovely, and I had so much fun meeting her. You're going to hear her name a lot. We Don't Talk About Carol is in bookstores now. Are you so excited this book is out in the world?
I'm still pinching myself that it's real.
I bet. Okay, I have to tell you, I read the book, loved it so much, cried, laughed. I have so many questions. But Kristen, then I did not know starting it, that it was your first novel.
It's a published
That
novel
is
anyway.
bonkers.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that you enjoyed it too.
Oh my gosh. First of all, I have a sister and I'm the oldest. So there's that dynamic that is just that family dynamic, and the protective sister dynamic is so beautiful throughout the whole book. Start us out at the beginning. Like how did you have, the idea and the fact that you blend such a tough subject matter, a historically tough subject matter, and with the social justice piece, with this emotional family. Just start us out with how you really came up with the idea and how all of those themes blended.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came up with the idea while taking one of my many socially distanced pandemic walks, listening to true crime podcasts. And it was in listening to those podcasts that I learned about the really disturbing discrepancies when it comes to the way the cases of missing people of color are often treated
Mm-hmm.
in this country. For example, Black Americans are going missing at a disproportionately high rate, yet our cases are less likely to be covered by the press, and our cases are also less likely to be solved. And so I was interested in finding a way to maybe shed light on this issue through a propulsive and also emotional story.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, suspense is one of my favorite genres to read, but so are family dramas. So I was interested in trying to find a way to blend the two. And it seemed like especially with a story like this, where a person in your own family goes missing, tying that together with many dynamics, including family secrets, difficult relationships between family members. It all seemed like a very natural combination of pieces to bring to the table here.
Who do you share your notes and your first chapters and those things with? Do you have family that reads, or do you have or is it all your editors and your professional team? I pictured you having a sister or family writing this with you.
Oh, I'm glad you felt that way. I mean, honestly, I have two sisters. I'm sort of a middle child, though my older sister is 12 years older and didn't grow up in the same house as me. So I often felt those same sort of, older sister protective dynamics that you
Uh-huh.
mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. I did actually speak quite a bit with my mother and uncle. Who
Mm.
both grew up in Raleigh, and my uncle still lives in Raleigh, to get some
Mm-hmm.
insights from them in terms of living in that city in the time when aspects of this book take place. But my writing community primarily consists of a group of women who I met through the UCLA Extension program several
Oh,
years ago.
interesting.
We
Okay.
all took the same creative writing class together, and we've been exchanging pages with each other on a monthly basis for many years. So they actually read the story chapter by chapter as I wrote
Oh,
it, and gave me so much helpful feedback. And then my writing group, also local to LA, my book club, I should say, they also read the novel when it was at a closer to the place where I was submitting it to literary agents, and they also provided so much wonderful feedback. So I'm very fortunate to have so many people supporting my work in all these different ways.
No, that's amazing. I love how you chose the city. So I'm in LA person, but we are a Michigan family, a UMich family, go
Oh, go
blue.
blue!
So it's I was like Detroit, and anything that's like Detroit piques my interest, and then when I saw that you went to Michigan, but I loved all of your placements. So I didn't know that the family, yeah, having family in Raleigh adds to that. Going back to the kind of the social the piece, because it is, and I don't know if My Favorite Murder was one of the podcasts
Absolutely.
that, yeah, that, and the stories that they do on women of color missing, and just I can't think of how many I've listened to that talk about especially Black women in the South missing, but the Indigenous women of Canada and Alaska, and those similar stories. But also just the dynamic of why still to this day a young, healthy, happy, thriving teenage girl goes missing and it's dismissed that she ran away. Like, what? I mean, that is just so, and and the frustration I felt in reading your book of how how can adults be so dismissive? And we know it still happens now, and especially in marginalized, poor and drug addicted, the communities, the marginalized communities are dismissed even more. But these healthy, happy, thriving girls going missing, and then it's dismissed as a runaway. And how, tell us a little bit about your research into that space of the story.
Sure. I mean, I think, yeah, whenever I would see the statistics about the volume of Black women, girls going missing in the States, it did really hit home for me. I'm a Black woman. I see those statistics. I think of my sisters. I think of my
Mhm.
niece, so it does feel very, very personal. I think as far as some of the places I went for some of my research, there are a lot of organizations doing really important work on this topic. The Black and Missing Foundation, for
Mhm.
example, they offer quite a lot of helpful statistics and data points related to the story, but they also do a lot of important work to amplify the cases of missing people of color that often go overlooked by traditional media.
Mhm.
So that was really important. And then I did do some research as well into a bit of the history of how missing persons cases were treated around the time that the girls in the story went missing back in the 1960s. I think,
Mhm.
especially then, that there was less attention. The idea of stranger danger didn't really exist in modern parlance yet. I think that especially then, particularly if there's someone like Carol who kind of talked about maybe wanting to run away at some point,
Right.
it can also potentially be easier to think, even for the family, that's something that they went on their own to run away versus
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
nefarious happening. So I was also interested in kind of exploring that piece too, as well within the book.
Yeah, I think this is one of the few novels I've read that that you truly did blend the mystery, the thriller, and learning, and almost from it. And I was doing a little internal review of the book for our team, and I said, you guys, I actually read the acknowledgments all the
Ah,
way through, because I wanted to see like what your sources, how you really came about this, and how you researched what had happened, what progress had been made. And I find that I just, yeah, I think that blending of being able to tell this story, and then pulling on all of our family, our husband, our sister, our mom, all of these family dynamic heartstrings, just really made it, such a great book. How
ah.
how have you felt with the reviews and the book tours and interviews and talking about and is it a world that you're really enjoying and wanting to be more a bigger part of?
Yeah, I mean, first the reviews and the very lovely messages that people are sending to me on Instagram and finding my
Yeah.
email address to share is so meaningful to me. And to your earlier point about feeling like you learned something along the
Mhm.
way with the book, I
Mhm.
mean, I also really think that fiction is such a powerful tool for,
Mhm.
becoming more empathetic and aware of the circumstances and situations of other people. And for me, I always appreciate when that's done in a way that doesn't feel heavy-handed, where
Mhm.
you're sort of naturally learning these pieces along the course of a propulsive story. And
Mhm.
so that's what I was really hoping to achieve here. Now the book is out in the world. It's been out, just for about a week. As of recording, it's been such a whirlwind, and truly incredible. And it's just a dream come true. I've wanted to be a published author for as long as I can remember. So to actually now walk into bookstores and see my book on the shelf is such a dream come true. So yes, I'm hopeful that this is a world that I can exist in for many, many years to come.
Yeah, no, it's that has to be just such a thrill. In our community, we have so many, writers and prospective writers, up and coming writers. Tell us a little bit about the publishing process and kind of putting your team together. And like you said, you had your writing group that were reading in your book clubs, but you mentioned as you were started going out to publishing houses. Can you talk a little bit about that process and any words of wisdom that you can share with people that are maybe where you were a couple of years ago as you were going through this?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So I think one piece of advice I would give is to start working on the description of your book as you're writing it, maybe long
Mm.
before you even start writing your first query letter that you'll send to literary agents. It was really helpful to me. I sort of had that as a guiding light as I was working on the book, but also I was able to sort of tweak that language so that when it was time to draft my query letter, I was able to take what then felt like a very polished back cover synopsis and include
Mm,
that in
mhm.
the query letter because that can often be the most difficult thing I think for us to write. We create these 100,000 word manuscripts and the need to boil it down into a couple of paragraphs. It's very challenging. And so in researching agents, it was also really important to me that I found someone that yes, represented work of the genre that I write, someone who's of course open to new clients, but I also wanted to work with somebody who represented a diverse array of authors from
Mhm.
lots of different backgrounds. So that was an important part of my research into looking for literary agents. And then I think also that a lot of positives can be found in rejections. I actually found
Mhm.
my literary agent when someone I queried passed on my book, but said, my colleague might actually be a better fit for this work.
Oh,
And I
that's
reached out to her.
wonderful.
Yeah. And so I think it can be very painful, of course, receiving those rejections, but sometimes,
Mhm.
one door closes, another door opens. That was definitely my experience.
Mhm.
And then I also feel really fortunate with the editor, who wound up purchasing this book, Jenny Chen, at Bantam, a Penguin Random House imprint. It was very obvious, just like my agent, that she completely understood this book. Sometimes I felt like she could understand what I was trying to say even more clearly than I could. And so just made the book a much, richer experience, I think, in our editing process together.
Those are great tidbits for people. I don't think anyone's ever mentioned like their synopsis and their bag that's doing that as we always hear about the elevator pitch when you see people like, oh, that's like deer in the headlights, like how do I boil it down to a few minutes or a few paragraphs, or so that's no, that's great advice. Are you working on something else now?
I am. So I was fortunate to sign a two-book deal when I sold this book. So my second book is actually due to my editor in mid-July. So very
Oh,
soon.
wow, fast.
Very soon, yes. I can't go into too many details at the moment, but it will be another suspense. I'm
Okay.
interested in exploring, I think, where this one touched quite a bit on family drama. The next one, I think, will look more into friendship dynamics, which I think is
Okay.
also sort of
Okay.
rich
Ooh, I can't wait.
territory.
Um, Do you think about sequels? Like, I want to know what's happening with Sydney and Sasha. Like, what is happening now? And that sweet, sweet baby girl. What do you think about sequels? Or do you
It's
think about the characters moving on? Or are they done and they're happy and wrapped up in your mind?
it's so funny. I mean, never say never, but I existed in Sydney's head and in that world for 5 years at this point. I'm
Okay.
personally ready for something new.
Like, Sydney, you need to stay over there now for a while.
Yeah, yeah, but I feel like in my mind, everyone's living happy lives now, and I can let them exist
Uh-huh.
in their own little universe. But so yeah, in my mind, that story is complete, but you never know.
Yeah, yeah. What is your how does your process evolved? I mean, this being your first novel, did you have to find your like I'm a morning person or we've heard people say, "Oh no, it's number of pages a day." How did your process kind of evolve and is it still the same now?
Ooh, I love that question. I mean, my process is largely the same. I'm a morning person, so I do the majority of my writing in the early mornings before my day job, and then on the
Mhm.
weekends. Some of the things that have changed, though, we talk a lot in the writing community about whether you're a plotter or a pantser. You know, whether you
Oh,
plot
what's
your
that? I
books.
don't know that.
If you're a plotter, you plot your book out in detail ahead of the writing process, so you have
Mm.
a very clear picture of where the book is going. Or you're a pantser, meaning you write by the seat of your pants. Uh,
Ah, okay. I was picturing like pants or like prancer. What does that mean? Okay. I love that. A seat of your pants. Okay.
so I definitely pantsed. We don't talk about Carol. I had no
Okay.
idea even how the book was going to end until I was three-quarters of
Really?
the
I was
way
gonna ask you that, if you knew that if you had the ending first, okay.
No, it was a lot of fun. You know, a lot of people describe it as writing like you are driving through fog. So, you know, like you can
Mm.
only see a few feet ahead of your headlamps. Now that I'm on a deadline, I thought, okay, maybe I should put a little bit more structure around this
Mhm,
process, just a
mhm.
little bit
Plotting
more.
is coming.
So I've done a lot more plotting, at least at a high level, so I have a general sense of where the story is going. And I previously never wrote with a like a daily or even a weekly word count in mind.
Mm,
I mostly just wrote so that I had a new chapter or two to share with my writing group every month. But again, now
mhm,
that there's a deadline involved, I've been trying to write at least 545 words a day. It feels sort of like an arbitrary goal, but it just sort of works for me. At some
okay,
point, that was the amount of words I needed to write to meet a certain milestone to
okay,
get the first pages to my editor. But that amount just seemed to stick for me. I do have a full time job as well, so I'm able to carve out enough time to get
mm,
those words in, either
mhm,
545 words a day or 3,800 words a week, and it
okay,
adds up to something substantial without feeling
mhm.
overwhelming or undoable.
Okay, I love that. I think that's great advice. So do your editor and your publisher, do they prefer plotters versus pantsers, or are they
Ooh,
okay with,
that's a great question. I should
or
ask
do they
them
wanna
that.
know? Maybe they don't wanna know. I don't wanna know how the sausage is made, just get it here.
That's a great question. Yeah, I should ask them that at some point. I think it's funny. I mean, in speaking about the second book, I had to have at least a firmer idea of the story in order
Oh,
to,
okay.
make sure they were on board with me moving forward with it. Though they still don't
Mhm.
know how it ends. So it actually, I suppose, doesn't matter necessarily if I plot it or pants it, as long as it as long as it's satisfying when they read it.
Exactly, exactly. No, I've never heard those terms. I love that. I think that's that's awesome. Um, so the book is out. It's been out for about a week now, and it's getting great reviews, and people are loving it. Have you had any time? And like you just said, you have a full time job. Also, have you had any time to relax and glow in it a little bit and enjoy it?
I have not really had too much time to take off, though I did, and I would recommend this for any author who does have a day job. I took the week of my lunch off from my day
Oh,
job
okay.
so I could focus on author life for a full week, and that
Yeah.
was a real treat. And it helped to also soak in the launch event I had at a local bookstore with friends and loved ones, and
Mhm.
that was really wonderful too. And also having that captured on film on camera. It's nice because
Yeah.
I was sort of having an out of body experience
Right,
as a lot of
right.
that was happening.
You have to go
So
back and look look to watch watch it.
exactly, I can relive it,
Yeah,
thanks to
exactly.
that.
Kristen, what do you like to watch and read, as a you said thrillers, do you like the same for television and movies? What do you like to do kind of when you're not, in author mode? What do you like to read and watch?
Absolutely. I read very widely. I do like to read quite a few thrillers. It's fun being a debut author because I'm getting to meet lots of other debut authors with wonderful books. Like I read this book, Julie Chan is Dead, recently by another debut author. It's very excellent. Count My Lies is another excellent the suspense that recently came out. And then yeah, same with TV. I think White Lotus. I recently finished the most
Right.
recent season. It's so engrossing. They really know how to tell a mystery and
Mhm,
create
mhm.
very memorable characters. So I think
And
also,
create
yeah,
tension.
so much tension, so
So
much
much
tension.
tension.
I think, TV watching is important for writers too, because it's all
Mm.
storytelling at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so I think it can be
Mhm.
inspiring. And
Mhm.
also a chance to look at a different screen than the computer screens we spend so much time in front of.
Right, right. Did you have a favorite author growing up or authors that you liked reading as you were growing up?
Toni Morrison is my biggest inspiration. Song of
Mm.
Solomon is by far my favorite book. Yeah, I think that I've always wanted to be a writer and an author,
Mhm.
but reading her books, I just thought, wow, if I could get anywhere close to what
Yeah.
she's able to accomplish from a storytelling perspective, then I will have made it. So she is sort of a guiding light.
And there's something so when you have certain authors, and she's one of them. Jeffrey Eugenides is another one that I think it's almost like a song. It's like it's lyrical. Their writing and the way I don't know if the way that it processes in my head is just like there's almost a melody to it. It's amazing how some and that style sticks with you.
I completely agree. It's like they're
That's
painting with
yeah.
words. It's extremely
Right?
beautiful.
Right?
Hmm.
Just yeah, beautiful. No, Toni Morrison's work is beautiful. Well, Kristen, thank you so, so much for joining us today. And We Don't Talk About Carol is out, and we loved it. Like I said, it's coming up in our newsletter also with a little review because we
Hey,
at Women in Entertainment we really, really enjoyed it and love celebrating your debut novel. So thank you for being with us.
thank you so much for having me. This was a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to In Her Words. We hope you'll join us at womeninentertainment.com and go to our Substack for extended interviews and behind the scenes access.